Whether therefore you eat or drink, or whatsoever you do, do all to the glory of God. Good evening and welcome to another edition of Nature's Way here on Waves 96.3 FM. I am Debbie, your host, and I am so happy to be here with you this evening. Now, God has been gracious unto us, and He has spared our lives. He has given us journeying mercies. He has provided for us, and we are truly grateful. Um, Last week, Nebert was here with you. I just want to openly say thank you to Nebert, my producer, for being here, for filling in for me. I had to attend to a function out of parish, but God is good, and we are back here. I am back here with you this evening, and we're going to be continuing our discussion on hydrotherapy that I started, and as I promised, we will be continuing this discussion this afternoon. Before I get into the discussion, however, I would just invite you to bow your head with me while I pray. Our Father which art in heaven, thank you for your mercies and your grace towards us. Thank you for all that you do on our behalf. I am grateful, Lord, that you have granted me this opportunity to speak to your people on health and specifically on hydrotherapy this afternoon. I pray that you may come divinely near and touch everything so that everything may work well and that your people will understand and gain the knowledge that is necessary for this time. Bless us now, we pray, and thank you for all that you do on our behalf. In Jesus' name I say thanks. Amen. Amen. Well, as I said, we'll be continuing our discussion on hydrotherapy, and we will be looking at, last time I was here, we looked at local cold and cold to heating, and now I'll be looking at local hot. And time permits, we're going to be going hot, larger, local and larger hot, and so on as time progresses. So please bear with me. My apologies for the late start. On Sundays it's kind of hectic because us as Seventh Day Adventists, um, we are at church all day on Sabbath, which was yesterday, and so today we have to do the things that we have to do and prepare for the work week, and time just swiftly runs by sometimes. So, but God is good, and I am here this afternoon to share with you. So, as I said before, the water is one of the 8 laws of health, and we have been looking at water, and we have been looking at the purpose of water, and there are some biblical um, applications too as it relates to water. Spiritual thirst and provision, God has given us that provision also for cleansing and purification. And water creates, rejuvenates, and refreshes. And um, the Lord has made provision for us with water. The Bible speaks of a living water that quenches spiritual thirst, symbolizing Jesus' offer to eternal life. And um, we make reference to, Jesus' teaching on his message as the living water. And this is a key message in the Bible. Water is used for cleansing, as I said, physical and spiritual. And, as we see in the Old Testament, you know, water takes away impurities, water rejuvenates, revives, refreshes. And God, in His providence, has given us the different distinctions. And Water is also associated with destruction, as we know that Bible story about the great flood. All right, and we water is also used as other symbolic uses. It gives strength, it gives happiness, it has the ability to give us strength in that. And from experience, if you are not feeling so, revived and perked up, water can do that for you as well. And there are many texts in the Bible that make reference to water and blood working together and so on, like John 4:14, John 7:38, Psalm 42, and so on. And we see where water is used to restore health. And this is why we're looking at that is the area we want to zoom in on this afternoon, restoration of health, according to Jeremiah 30 and verse 17. And God has used water to he we know the first miracle in the Bible where he turned water into wine. And he has been using water. We use water for baptism as well. So water is widespread. It involves in everything. It is involved in everything. And it gives us the the ability to be refreshed. Now, hydrotherapy, and I'm going to be looking at, as I said earlier, we looked at local cold the last time I was here. Now we're going to be looking at local hot. And we know we use the cold applications for certain things, and we use the hot applications for certain things, which I'll be sharing with you. Also, we use both applications. So we are looking at the fomentations that we will use the local hot for. All right, so these are the fomentations, and we know that a fomentation is an application of moist heat to a particular part of the body, a part of the body that has been afflicted. Now the moist heat is produced by clots that are wrung out from hot water, and then they are laid upon the afflicted part of the body. And there are two methods, but of all the methods applying heat to the body, there is the hot, the one that is more effective and even more simpler is to use the cloths that are wrung out of the very hot water. Also, there is another application which we will that is you can use the steam method as well. But personally, I prefer this one where the cloth is wrung out from the hot water because it is more controlled, and steam is usually hotter than the water itself. So the steam is what really burns you more than the water. Now, heat can be applied to as dry heat or moist heat. All right, so you can control the heat. Moist heat is the more powerful of the two, however. Now, when given to relieve pain, this heat is best given locally, that is, to only the part of the body that is afflicted. So, a fomentation is one of the simplest and most effective means of applying moist heat to various parts of the body. All right, now how can this help you? How can local hot fomentation help you? Now, a fomentation can relieve pain, but if the heat is more moderate and the application more prolonged before being renewed, meaning if you don't change the application on time, it can also it has another effect. It can also relax and enable the person to fall asleep. So if this is the reason you are using it, then you go right ahead and for a prolonged period. But if you are doing it to relieve pain, you would not use it for a prolonged period. No, it can relax you and put you to sleep if that, if it is prolonged. Now, it also increases the circulation of white blood cells, and we spoke about that before, and the flow of blood to the skin, thus relieving internal congestion. Now, it relieves muscle tension and spasms and pain in muscle joints and internal organs as well. It promotes sweating, thus increasing the elimination of toxins. And it either stimulates or relaxes according to the temperature of the application. So fomentations are excellent for chest congestions due to colds, bronchitis, and also um, pleurisy. So these are the things that you can use the local hot fomentations for. Now that will help you. Now, what are the things that you are going to need? Well, you are going to need hot water. So you're going to be needing a kettle of boiling water, or some persons prefer the steamer method. As I said, I prefer the hot water method because that is, in my estimation, it is more controlled, and then you can decide how hot you want it to be. All right, so at least you're going to also need at least 4 fomentation cloths, one or two the Turkish towels, which is the that rough towel, also a washcloth, and a basin of cold water. Now, here's how you're going to make your own fomentation cloths. Now, you can make your own fomentation cloths. You can either get the material, and you can either cut it from a blanket, an old blanket, or you can purchase the you can purchase a blanket for that purpose, or you can get that type of material at the store. Now, the size should be 30 to 36 inches square, right? And it's all around, so it's square. So you are going to use 4 cloths. You can cut all of them from one regular sized blanket because you don't want it too small. So it's a regular sized blanket, and you're going to just cut 4 squares out of that, all of them at the same size. It is best that when it is part wool and never all cotton, because now I'll let you know. It is ideal though when it is 50% wool, because we know that wool retains heat, and 50% cotton because the cotton it retains the moisture much better. Welcome, um, welcome to those who have joined on YouTube. God is good. Good evening, sis. Good evening to all. Sherbian, nice to have you on. Hope you have been having a wonderful Sunday so far. Also, Simone Hewitt, welcome. Also, Rowan, nice to have you sharing in this program. And I hope the information will be, useful to you or somebody you know. All right. Just remember to like, share, and share this program so that others can get the information. As I said, we are speaking about hydrotherapy. We are looking at local hot, and we are looking at what you need to make these fomentations. As I said, it is best if the fabric that you are using is 50% wool, because we know that wool retains heat, and 50% cotton because cotton retains moisture, and we want this for the fermentation: moisture and heat. Now, some folks use some quilted materials, about 36-inch square cloths made of 50-50, wool and cotton. Now, these are considered best, especially if a steamer is being used to heat the cloths. All right. Ultimately, though, they are somewhat less effective than the single folded cloths that are cut from the blankets, that fabric there, because they hold the heat better. When they are wrung out of the boiling water, they hold the heat much, much better. Now, if the cloths are placed in a steamer to heat up instead of being wrung out from a pot of boiling water, there is also more danger of burns. And this is why I said I prefer the hot water method. Now, since the steam is so much hotter than the boiling water, and you will get burned from the steam. All right, so I would suggest that we stick to the boiling water method, especially if you're not an expert at this. You're trying to, alleviate pain, maybe on yourself or somebody else. And if you are not versed in this area, it is best you use the hot water, the boiling water method. Now, how are you going to apply this to the person that is sick? Now, first of all, you have to ensure that the room that the person is in, there is no drafts. So the room should be warm enough, about 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, and no drafts, so no windows open, no door open. The place must be, that room should be warm and comfortable. All right, so the water should be boiling at this time, and you're going to fold one formation cloth into about three thicknesses. So you're going to fold it long way, about three thicknesses. So you fold it in three, and then you are going to grasp both ends and partially twist them so that the water, when you dip it in, the water won't travel to that section that you're holding. Now you're going to immerse all of that part in the water, excluding the ends that you're holding, and you're going to put it down in the boiling water. Now, so you need a pot of boiling water without a lid so that you can put it down in there. And then when you're going to lift it out, and then you're going to twist it tightly so that you get out the water, because you don't want any dripping. All right. So you're going to stretch or pull the twisted fermentation to wring it as dry as possible. Then you're going to untwist it quickly now. You can just let go one end, and then the other one will unfold. All right. And you're going to wrap it in another piece of fermentation cloth, in a dry one. And for moderate heat, use only one wrung out cloth inside the dry one. For stronger moist heat, place two of them inside the dry fermentation cloth. So let me explain. So if you want a moderate heat, you just use one fermentation cloth that has been wrung out of the boiling water. If you want much hotter, if you want more heat, you're going to use two of that fermentation cloth that you have wrung out of the hot water. All right, and you're going to place both of them inside the dry fermentation cloth. So this is why you need so many. You need at least two wet that you are going to wet, and you need two that are dry. All right, so with the hot moist fermentation quickly placed inside it, you're going to quickly fold over the dry fermentation cloth onto itself and carry it to the bedside where the person is. And you're going to unfold and place the thinner side of the dry cloth on the area that you are going to be treating. So the moist ones are still inside of it, however. So you're going to cover it with a towel, and then you're going to, a fermentation should be large enough to cover not just the area, the exact area that has been afflicted, but it has to cover that area and just a little over than the afflicted part of the body. So if the treatment is to be given to, like at a distance from the stove, say this the room where the person is, then what you need to do is have at least 3 sets of fomentation cloths that you can wring out, because by the time you get to the room, cooling will start. So you will have all three of them with that heat bundled, so then you know, it won't get cold so quickly. Also, what you can do is you can use the 3 sets of fermentation cloths that you have wrung out, and you can place them at the bottom of a pail, and you can line the pail with dry fermentation cloths. Or what you can also do is use a heating bag to put on top of it so that it can hold the heat. All right. So you can use the hot water bottle also. You can place it at the bottom of the pail. And then if you have more than one, you can put a second one on top over the 3 cloths to keep it um, hot, right? Because instead of to go so far back and forth to the kitchen. Now, if the fermentation is unbearably hot to the one that is placed upon it, rub underneath until it can be tolerated. Always ask the person if the fermentation is burning, and if it is too hot, you are going to need to place another towel. So that rough Turkish towel you can use. You can use it between the person's skin and so you put it on the person's skin, and then you put the fermentation cloth on top of it. All right, so that the person will be able to tolerate that heat. Now, the outer dry fermentation cloth should lie in close contact with the skin and should be changed about every 3 to 5 minutes, unless a relaxing effort is all that you desire. So, as I said earlier, in case of a pain, you are going to use a very hot applications, and they should be changed as soon as they begin to feel comfortable. So if you want the person to be relaxed and fall asleep, you can prolong that process. If not, you need to change it as quickly as possible, as soon as you feel like it is not that hot anymore. You start changing it so that the effect that you want, which is the relief of pain, can be achieved. When given for insomnia or only to remove pain, milder heat should be applied for a longer time, about 6 to 10 minutes. It is best placed over the spine, or if there is spasticity of the bowel, you can place it over the abdomen. So it depends. Pain, you can have pain during constipation. You can have pain if there is any, once the area is inflamed, you will get pain. So you can put it on that area. You can also have another fermentation that is ready to replace the one being removed. Make sure once you remove it, you have one to replace. But just before you replace it, make sure that you quickly wipe the moisture from the skin before applying putting the next application on. So you need to work quickly not to expose the area to 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 get chilled. All right, so you don't want to expose the area, and so you need to work as quickly as possible. Now, usually 3 successive applications are made. When the last fermentation is removed, you are going to cool the area with a washcloth that is wrung out from the cold water. Remember, I said at the beginning you're going to need a basin of cold water as well. So you're going to um, use that water to wipe the area. All right. Or you can use the wet hand rub. That means your hand is wet with cold water and you use it to rub the area. or you can use a cold compress or a rub with cold and wet towel. All right. Then dry the area thoroughly and cover it at once to prevent it from chilling. And remember now, you are going to be working quickly. All right. So there are some important points that I want to share with you. It is important that the room is warm, as I said before. All right. Be especially careful when you're working with persons who are thin, you know, very slim, or aged persons, or with children. You have to be very careful. You have to avoid chilling the person during or even after the treatment. Keep the feet warm. Wipe moisture from the skin before applying each fomentation. It is the moisture on the skin that causes burns. So you don't want the person to be burned. All changes should be made quickly. All right. A cool cloth on the forehead or neck may be necessary at times. Keep the head cool. In fomentations to the face or other sensitive parts, first apply gauze next to the skin. Once you are at the sensitive parts, like for example over the eye and so on, which I'll be looking at later on, if to ensure that there is no burn. All right. If perspiration continues after the treatment is ended, give a general cold friction, because the person then needs to that means the person is still warm. Okay. So you can use the wet hand rub, as I said before, or the wet towel rub. Sensitive surfaces, especially bony prominences, also scars and metal implants, these should be protected by extra coverings of flannel or Turkish towel. If the person is liable to congestion in the head, always in case of fever or general perspiration, lay cold compresses. These are cloths that are wrung out from cold water on the person's head and neck. In case of heart disease, so remember, if when we are treating persons, we have to know, their situation. In case of heart disease, usually in fever and with rapid pulse from any cause, place an ice bag over the heart. Now, where there is extreme pain, have the fomentation as hot as can be tolerated. So this will help that extreme pain to dissipate. Omit the cold afterward in extreme pain, as in the case of pleurisy, kidney pain, and dysmenorrhea. Now, in such cases, at the end of the fermentations, the part is dried. Make sure the part is dried without the cold application, and immediately covered with a flannel or other dry covering. So in these cases, you are not going to do the cold application. Okay, you are just going to dry the area very quickly and make sure the person is covered to prevent chilling. Now, as I said earlier, some persons prefer the steamer method, but this is an alternate method. It is also a good method, and it is often easier to do because you won't have to hot the water and do any wringing out and so. But one must remember that the clots have been taken out of a steamer pot, and therefore they are much hotter than the regular method, hot water method. So we have to be careful not to burn ourselves, the person who is doing the application, or the person who is receiving the fermentation. All right. So what you can do, you can sprinkle the fermentation cloths as well. So those that I mentioned as the cut-up blankets, as you do the same thing as you would when you are going to iron clothes. Then you just sprinkle them with water. Then you're going to place them in the steamer. All right. So this is the type of steamer or canner used like when you are doing the cook jars or the fruit or vegetables. When you are doing canning, you can use that type of steamer as well. All right, so you're going to put it in there, and then you are going to about with approximately 3-inch diameter holes in it. You're going to put the cloth in the steamer. Now, after sprinkling, you're going to roll up the cloths and stack them in the steamer vertically. You're going to cover and let it steam for about 20 minutes. And then you're going to remove and proceed as normally, except that you need to know now that you have to wring out the moisture because you don't want any dripping. All right, so you still have to do a little wringing. It's not that wet as the one that you dip in the hot water, but you still have to wring it out to get out the excess moisture. It is now 4:45 p.m. You are tuned in to the Nature's Way program here on Waves 96.3 FM. I am Debbie, and if you're joining us on the radio just now, welcome. And as I said earlier, welcome to those on YouTube. And I pray that as we, have this little discourse, that the information will be useful to you. There are some cautions as well. Do not give fomentations when the sick person is unconscious, when the person has paralyzed body parts, malignancy, tendency to bleed or hemorrhage, or if the person has stomach or bowel ulcers. Do not place fomentation on the legs or feet of a diabetic or on the legs or feet of one with edema, varicose veins, or advanced vascular disease in these extremities. Never place hot of any kind directly on an open eyeball. And this is a word of caution because it has happened. All right. Now we're going to be looking at the eye in a minute when we are doing the hot gauze compress, and most times this is used if there's an injury to your eyes. All right, so what is this, the hot gauze compress? Now this is an application of heat to a small and delicate part of the body, not necessarily the eye, but most definitely if you are treating the eye, well, if it's the eye or if it's a fresh wound. So you're not going to put it directly on a fresh wound or on their eyes, on your eyeball. Now for both, make sure sterile, which is perfectly clean dressings, these should be used. The small heating compress of gauze has an effect similar to that of a fomentation. All right, so how can this help you? Now, these small compresses are most generally used for relief localized congestions and inflammation and to stimulate circulation in the afflicted part. Now, how do you apply the hot gauze compress? Now, you're going to dip the gauze into boiling water and then you're going to wring it out. This is done in a manner similar to that of the fomentations that I just mentioned, in which the ends are kept dry and the boiling hot center part is twisted so that you can get the water out, the moisture out. Now, care must be taken not to apply too hot a compress on these sensitive areas. For this purpose, the temperature of 120 degrees Fahrenheit would be best. Now be very careful to place no pressure on the cloth, for you do not want it to touch the eyeball. Okay? And you know, up here your eyelid, it's not that thick. So you don't want to put any pressure on it so that it's, you know, the heat to, it affects the eyeball. While one eye is being treated, the other should be protected with a clean, dry dressing or with a shield, some sort of shield. You put a towel over it, or other piece of gauze over it, or something. So you have to protect the eye. Okay? So wring out the boiling water from the gauze and you protect the other eye that is not being treated with a covering. The eye should be dried well before the next hot compress is applied. So when you put the first hot compress on, and when you're about to apply the other one, you make sure that you dry that area, you dry the eyelid. All right. So remember, it is when it is wet and moist that burning will occur. So you don't want any burning. Now, because the compress is usually quite small and uncovered, it cools very quickly and must be changed at once a minute. All right. So you want to get it done between it's 10 to 15 minutes, but you change it every minute in order to get the desired results. Okay. So the treatment should be included by cooling the body part with a cool cloth, then drying thoroughly and covering it to keep it warm. So this is a sentence that you have to memorize when you are doing this type of treatment with the hot gauze compress with open wounds or with your eye, especially with your eye. Okay, so now the sentence that it's suggested for you to memorize, it says, no hot cloth should ever directly touch an eyeball with the eye open. So it's no hot cloth should ever directly touch an eyeball with the eye open. Okay? So the other application is the hot water bottle. So this, we looked at the boiling water, the steamer, and the hot gauze application. Now we're going to be looking at the hot water bottle. Now, we all know what a hot water bottle is. All right, so it is that soft rubber bag that is filled with hot water, and you can lay it beside the body part that has been affected. You can put it on the area that has been affected, but not without having something there, like you have one of those Turkish towels, or something, one of um, those cloths, fermentation cloths, the dry one, and then you put it. So you have to have something between the bag and your skin. All right, you don't put it directly on the body part because you don't want to get burned. All right, so these precautions should be um, accompanied by the use of the hot water bottle. Now, how can the hot water bottle help you? So, the hot water bottle provides localized heat just where it is needed, and it does it with relatively little effort. A hot water bottle can be used to relieve pain and congestion. It can provide relaxation and rest if it is prolonged. And remember, if you after you have done your treatment, and if you are unable to fall asleep and get some well needed rest, you can prolong the process at the last fermentation in order for you to be relaxed and rest. You see what water does to you? No wonder it is a part of the 8 laws of health, and you don't just use it um, you don't just use it internally by drinking it, you use it externally as well by bathing and by applying it in fomentations and compresses. Welcome, Septon. Nice to have you on. Okay, so the hot water bottle can be used to relieve pain and congestion. It provides relaxation and rest if it is prolonged, and reinforce or prolong the effect of fomentations. All right, so what you will need, of course, you're going to need a hot water bottle, and you can obtain this from your local drugstore. All right, and you're also going to need a flannel cover or a Turkish towel. Those towel with the rough surfaces, those are the ones that are called. You have some that are milder, but in this case, you're going to need the one with the rough surface. You're going to need a picture or a jar. I don't know if a lot of the young persons today, when you say a picture, they know exactly what you're talking about. It is not a photograph. It is something that is used to catch water or to store water. All right, so you need a picture or a jar with water, of course, at about a 115 to 125 degrees Fahrenheit, and a bath thermometer if you need to test the temperature at any time. That is optional. You don't have to use a thermometer. You can, just keep it on hand if you need to test the temperature. Now, how do you apply this? Now, you're going to fill the pitcher or the jar with water, 115 to 125 degrees Fahrenheit. And from the picture, you're going to use it to fill the hot water bottle. Now, you don't need to fill the hot water bottle right up. So you're going to fill the bottle about a third to half full. All right, you're going to place the bottle on its side with, of course, the tip of its mouth. You're going to hold that up, and then you're going to press lightly until the water comes up to the top, and this will help to expel the air that is inside of the bottle, the water bottle. Now, expelling the air from the bottle enables it to lie flat and, help it not to be bulky and difficult to use, because you want it as flat as possible to be placed either beside the body part that is affected or directly, well, on the body part, of course, with a cushion between your skin and the bottle. All right. And then what you're going to do, you are going to um, it also, when you do that and get out the air, it also provides more heat, and the heat stays longer, the water stays hotter longer. All right, so you're going to then close it tightly, and you're going to test it if there are any leaks, because you don't want that hot water to be leaking out on you. All right, or to wet up your bed, or the area that you're going to be making the application. Now, cover the bottle with a flannel cover or a Turkish towel. Now, it is best to maybe you can sew or make a bag for the bottle. It is best to do that, because sometimes um, the person may be, a little restless and may be shifting, and the towel or the cloth can be separated from the bottle, and then you possibly might get the burn. So you want, in order to prevent that, as soon as you obtain that bottle, you can make a bag for it, or ask that dressmaker to make a bag for it, or you have a bag that it can go in so that it won't shift. Even if it is shifted, it is inside the bag, so it will prevent burning. Okay, so the value of the hot water bottle is in the temperature of the water that is within it. Therefore, you will need to refill it regularly during the time it is being used for best results, because remember, it's a hot water bottle and the water, you need the water to be hot. Now, after you have finished using the hot water bottle, then you empty it and you store it upside down. All right, so that whatever, with the lid open, of course, whatever water is left in there can drain. Okay, so the hot water bottle can be wrapped in a moist cloth as well, which is then covered by a dry one. So this will give the effect of a mild fermentation, and the fermentations themselves may be reinforced or prolonged by the use of the hot water bottles that are placed outside of them. Now, caution, a word of caution, the hot water bottle should only be partially filled with water, never full. Don't fill it up to the top, because remember, you want to get that air out as well. So you're going to test the water temperature in some way by using the thermometer, as I mentioned, if you want to, if you think you need to test it. So using that thermometer is best, so that you are not placing water that is too hot inside the bottle. Water temperature is especially important if the bottle will be warming or dazed. If you are using it to warm dazed, unconscious, or overly weak person. So be very careful about placing a bottle by a paralyzed or diabetic person, lest the person be burned, and you don't want the person to get burned. Okay, you have to be very careful. Always test the bottle for leaks, and always cover it with a flannel or toweling. Watch the position of the bottle, for if the person is restless, it may be moved and can burn the person. Avoid unnecessary weight on the person. Never leave the hot water bottle doubled on itself or in contact with anything oily, because the oil can rot the rubber. Okay, and you don't want that to happen. Now, those are the tips for using the hot water bottle method of the local hot hydrotherapy. Now we're going to be looking at the hot paraffin bath, the pack, and the dressing, and the wrap. And if we have time, we'll be able to complete all 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. Okay, so now the hot paraffin pack, dressing, and wrap. This is a warm bath for an extremity, often an arthritic hand. It is especially helpful because of certain properties of paraffin that I am going to be describing to you. Paraffin is a waxy, white, tasteless, odorless substance that can be a real blessing to have in our homes. One of the important properties of water is its high heat conduction. This means that it can quickly transfer heat to something else. But the paraffin has a low heat conduction. This means that it can be used to apply heat for a longer period of time to a local area. Hence, local hot. Paraffin will hold heat longer than water because it has a heat capacity of 0.62 as compared to 1.0 for water. Thus, it is about half that of the water. But its heat retaining qualities are greatly increased by the fact that it solidifies only a few degrees above tolerable temperature. Therefore, if you place your hand in paraffin just above the melting point, a solid layer or glove of paraffin quickly coats the skin and just as quickly becomes a temperature that is not too hot for your skin. All the rest of the paraffin in the bowl will continue to be too hot for your hand. So you have to do it just before boiling point. All right. However, the hand will continue to feel nicely warm for quite some time. So if you have like an arthritic hand, as I said, you can use the paraffin for that. Okay. All the rest, as I said, of the paraffin will be that is left in the bowl, that will continue to be hot. So you don't want to stick your hand in that. All right. So this is due to the low heat conductivity of the paraffin and the absence of convection current next to the skin. Also, the actual skin temperature can be hotter than otherwise possible without burning, pain, and any injury because the covering of the paraffin will not permit the coated skin to sweat. So remember, as I said, if you realize the application, you are burned when the skin is wet. So it is best that you dry the skin. Okay, you dry the area. So because the paraffin will not allow the skin to sweat, you won't have any burning, all right, or pain. Paraffin does not lose heat by evaporation or by convection once it is hardened. So it has a latent heat of 35 calories, and water has no latent heat so near to the body temperature. All right, so that is why the hot paraffin bath and the pack and the dressing and the wrap are these are recommended if you have like an arthritic hand and you want to treat it. Now, how can the paraffin help? Now, the paraffin bath is used for painful arthritic type joints in the arms or in the legs. Most often, it is used on the hand. It's soothingly relieves pain as it greatly increases the blood circulation to the afflicted body parts, which is the hand. Even the smallest blood vessels become dilated as the nourishing, healing blood courses through the painful extremity. In addition, the temperature of the surrounding areas are elevated, thus helping them to resist the disease. The paraffin bath or paraffin pack or dressing and the wrap can help in conditions of arthritis, gout, and sciatica. It is also helpful for stiff joints, tendon repair, sprains, strains, tenosynovitis, old burns, skin grafts, and following a fracture. You can use it for that. Do not use it if there are open sores or lesions on the area that is to be treated. Now, those with diabetes or any tendency to lessen skin sensibility must use it with caution, or you use the other methods. All right. So you're going to need 2 to 4 pounds of paraffin, the paraffin wax, and 4 tablespoons of mineral oil. So you're going to need a double boiler, a bath towel, and a piece of oiled silk rather. And you're also going to need a thermometer just in case you want to do that. So you have the double boiler, and you're going to dip your hand into the that double boiler just before it gets to boiling point, and that's then you'll have a glove like substance on your hand, and you keep that on for a little while until you're going to feel a little heat, but it is not going to be too hot that you're not able to tolerate. All right. So paraffin wax, which is used in household preserving, can be used. That also can be used. It is best to add some mineral oil to it so that the solid paraffin is less brittle and melts more easily. The added oil also helps the tissues to be softened, preparatory for a later massage. Use 1 pint mineral oil to 5 pounds of paraffin. Okay, and you can do a little bit of research and see what it looks like as well. Now for the paraffin bath, so you're going to melt the paraffin in a double boiler or maybe a crock pot if you don't have a double boiler, and let it cool until a thin film begins to form on the top of it. All right. Examine the skin for any open sores, any lesions, or any unhealed scars, and if there are any skin infections as well. Never use the paraffin bath if there are sores, open wounds, etc. Hairy areas on the part of to receive the paraffin, this should be previously clipped, shaved, or oiled. Now, wash and dry very carefully the hand or the foot that you're going to be treating. Now, what you need to make sure that it is properly dried. All right. Now you're going to dip the hand quickly into the paraffin, keeping the fingers separate. Now, if the wrist needs to be coated also, because it also has pain, the container should be deep enough for this to be done. So if you have a crock pot and it is not deep enough, well, you have to make sure it is filled with more than the 4 pounds. So you have 2 to maybe 5 pounds. 5 pounds or 6 pounds would be best. All right, so that it can go up to your wrists. Now, as I said, dip it in there, keep the fingers separate, and if it need, the container should be deep enough for the wrist also to be done, or you can use a brush to paint the paraffin in that on that area if it is not deep enough. All right. So if both hands are to be treated, then dip one hand in first, remove and wrap it in a plastic while the other hand is being coated. The effect is prolonged by treating the opposite hand also. So when you're treating the person, you're going to instruct the person to hold the fingers or the toes, if it's the foot, in a relaxed position without moving in order to avoid cracks in the paraffin glove. So you're going to try not to move your fingers or your toes, depending on if it's your hand or your foot. So you remove the hand until the paraffin hardens, then dip it again. And repeat this about 10 times until a thick glove is formed, because at first it's going to be a thin layer. So you do it until a thick glove is formed. All right. When the glove is thick enough, immerse the hand into the paraffin in the pot for about 10 to 15 times or up to 30 minutes or longer, or You can wrap the hand in a plastic or towel and wool fermentation cloth and leave it for about 15 minutes. So it's either you're going to dip it in and keep it in for the 30 minutes, or you can wrap it and keep it in the fermentation cloth and keep it for 15 minutes. So be careful if you are treating elderly and weak persons. So you have to be careful. All right. Now have a rack in the tank so your fingers do not touch the bottom. You don't want to touch the bottom of the pot. So you know those rack with the holes in them, you can use those in the bottom of the pot so that your fingers do not touch the pot directly at the bottom. All right. So leaving the hand in the paraffin bath, um, it does not macerate the skin. All right. This might just happen if it were left in the water, but you don't want to leave it in the water because that will happen. But when you do it in the paraffin bath, this does not happen. All right. So you can keep it there for some amount of time so that it can do its work. Now, when finished, remove the wax by peeling off the glove and put the glove back into the pot of paraffin. This will melt again. So you're going to massage and exercise. Now you can do this. You can now massage and exercise and the hand or the foot. This will help it retain the better blood circulation that it received during the bath. It is now 5:16 p.m. You are tuned into the Nature's Way program here on Waves 96.3 FM. Right, so you are going to do the exercises so that you can retain the blood circulation, all right, that the paraffin started. All right, for exercise, what you can do is squeeze and hold a piece of warm paraffin in your hand. So you're going to squeeze it. It is going to get your handprint. So it's going to become like a mold. So you're going to squeeze and mold it. You're going to hold it as tight as you can, squeeze it, and then you let it go and you squeeze it again. So while the paraffin was on the hand, it absorbed some of the acids in the hand. You can clean this glove by placing it in a different pot if you wish, and then heating it to the boiling point. Then removing from the fire. The acids and other wastes quickly will boil off. When cool, place the chunk of paraffin back into the regular paraffin pot. When not in use, keep this pot covered at all times. So you have to have a special pot for the paraffin. Okay. Now we're going to be looking at the hot paraffin pack. So we have looked at the hot paraffin bath, and now we're going to be looking at the hot paraffin pack. Now what you're going to do, you're going to heat the paraffin in the double boiler and or a crock pot, as I said. Again, you're going to add some oil, and by means of a soft paintbrush about 3 inches wide, the paraffin is applied to the area in successive coats, each of which is allowed to harden enough so that the next can be put on it. So you're going to coat it with the brush, then you're going to let it harden a little, and then you put it on again. Usually about 10 coats is sufficient. You have now made a hot paraffin pack on the afflicted part. Now it will remain warm for about an hour. So you keep it on the area for an hour. okay? And it will remain warm. Now, this is similar to the pack, except that the layers of paraffin are alternated with a gauze bandage. So, such dressings are applied to arthritic joints which are acutely inflamed, for they furnish both heat and immobilization. Now, this dressing may be kept on overnight. So you put the paraffin on your joints, then you put a thin layer of gauze on it, and then you apply some more paraffin. All right, so you use that brush to apply a couple layers, then you place the dressing, the gauze, and begin applying several other layers. Then you place a second bandage or gauze and continue applying more layers. Then what you are going to do, you're going to stick your hand into a plastic bag, one of those Ziploc bags, then, and then you just lock it in, put a rubber band at the top of it to hold it in. All right, and then you are going to keep it overnight. Now, this is another variation that is especially helpful for sciatica. So you can apply this to where your sciatica is. So the paraffin is applied rapidly with a brush, about 10 to 12 coats, then covered with oiled silk or wax paper, then a towel or flannel. And it may be kept warm with a heat lamp or for about 10 to 30 minutes as well. All right. So this is what you're going to use. This one works well for sciatica. Now, there is also a kidney stone pack that you can use for the local hot hydrotherapy. Now, this is a hot application over a painful kidney when sharp pains from a kidney stone are left. All right, so those persons who have kidney stones and are suffering from pain without the stones being removed immediately, you can use this to alleviate the pain. All right, so a kidney stone pack is placed over the painful kidney area at a time of kidney stone attack, and this is a sharp pain from the stone. The pack, renewed as frequently as needed, is kept on for hours until the stone passes or the pain stops. Now, this can help. So you are going to be doing what you need to do to pass these stones, all right? But this can help while you are having pain. So what you're going to need a heating pad. You're going to need a plastic square or garbage bag, hot fermentation pack. You're going to need a towel, sheet, blankets, cold compresses, and funny, a radio. All right. Now, what you're going to do, you're going to spread a half sheet across the middle of the bed. Over this, you're going to place a heating pad turned up high with a plastic square or garbage bag over it. On top of this, you're going to place a hot pack with a towel over it. And this is large, very hot fermentation, and this should be applied quickly while the heat is still almost unbearable. Almost unbearable. Now, the electric heating pad will keep it hot. All right, so you're going to lay the folded sheet on the bed. You're going to place a heat pad, set it on high, place it in the center of the sheet. Then you place plastic sheet over the heat pad and sheet. And then you're going to make a fomentation and lay it on the plastic. Now, position the person on the bed so that the painful kidney is centered over the fomentation. So bring up the sheet on each side and pin it snugly to the person around the body to help hold the pack in place. Now, plug a radio into the same electric outlet that the heating pad is connected to. Then you're going to tune the dial to an area of that has no radio reception, and then turn the volume to high. Now, if moisture accidentally gets on the electrical units of the heating pad, the short will cause static on the radio. Thus, it will give you an alarm. So what you're going to do is keep the head cool as well with cold compresses. Now, all right, the radio, while you put the radio, let me go back over the radio section. It says plug a radio into the same electrical outlet. You're going to plug the heating pad into an electrical outlet. Preferably you will place the person close to one of those outlets that have the double sockets, right? So you connect the radio, plug it in there, the same one that the heating pad is connected to. Tune the dial to an area of no radio reception. So there is no radio reception there. And then you turn the volume to high. All right. Now, if moisture accidentally gets on the electrical units of the heating pad, the short will cause static on the radio. Thus, it will alert you. So then it means that it is time for it to be unplugged because it starts sweating. Okay? While you're doing this, while you are applying this, you are going to keep the head cool with cold compresses. So this is the hot paraffin, no, this is the kidney stone pack, right? And while you're applying the kidney stone pack, you are going to have the radio there to alert you if the heating pad is getting any moisture. And then while you're doing that, keep the person's head cool. So you're going to be needing cold compresses as well. All right. So conclude the application when the stone passes or the pain ceases. Then keep the person covered and warm. It is well to let the person sleep a while afterwards. All right. So the warm fomentation, if you can keep the heating pad on for a little longer so that the person can feel relaxed and go to sleep. Now, this is for the kidney stone pack. So this is another way of passing kidney stones. And this can also help. And of course, it is going to be done over time. It is not something that is done, that happens immediately. Okay? So, good afternoon, Norma. Nice to have you on. The sinus pack, we're going to be looking at the sinus pack. Now, the sinus pack is a combined set of applications that are applied simultaneously to reduce sinus pain. How can this help you? Now, these applications can help relieve the pain of a sinus attack. And we know that the pain of a sinus attack is not a nice pain. So you will need fomentation cloths, 2 trays of ice cubes, 2 small dry towels, hot foot bath, hot spinal fomentation. Now, how do we make this application? All right. So you're going to put one end of the bed or the treatment table against the wall. Then place a set of 3 hot fomentations to the chest. So about 3 minutes, you're going to keep it there. Make sure it's hot with 30 seconds cold applications between them. So you're going to do the hot for 3 minutes, but you're going to do a minute of hot, then 30 seconds cold applications, then another minute of hot, then another 30-second cold application, then another minute hot. All right. There should be no delay between the removal of the hot fomentation and the placement of the cold compress on the chest. Leave it there for a full 30 seconds. The third fomentation should remain on the chest throughout the remainder of the treatment. So that's the last one. That's the third 1 minute. Okay, you're going to let it remain on the chest throughout the remainder of the treatment. Now, you are going to put 1 tray of ice cubes in a small dry towel, fold it over to about 5 times 10 inches size, then make a second ice pack in the same manner. Place 1 ice pack under the back of the person's neck, centered over the lower edge of the skull. And you're going to wet the top of the head slightly, and then place the second ice pack on the top of the head. Hold the ice pack in place with a pillow. Fold a small towel lengthwise and, holding it in its center edge with one hand, fold the ends down about 90 degrees from the central point. Okay, so the ice pack, 1 ice pack is to be at the back of the neck, the head, close up to the skull. You hold it in place with a pillow. So you're going to place a pillow not under the person's head per se, but just to hold the ice pack in place. And then you are going to, of course, protect the person's face with a towel. All right, just exposing the nose and the mouth because you want the person to breathe. All right, so you're going to dampen the forehead, and then you're going to apply the second ice pack to the head and hold in place with a towel. That same towel, you fold it long way so that it covers the forehead, and then those 2 other pieces will come down to protect the rest of the face, leaving out the nose and the mouth. Okay, so you are going to protect the face, as I said, exposing the nose and the mouth, and then you're going to carefully lay the hot fomentation over the towel. So, using a single hot fomentation, you're going to fold it as the towel is folded and place it over the towel on the face for exactly 3 minutes. Timing is important. Then remove both the fomentation and the towel that is beneath it. Wring another small towel from the ice water and place it on the face over the reddened area. Make this change quickly and leave it on for a full 30 seconds. That's the cold one. Now end by drying briskly, and then repeat steps about 3 times. Conclude with a cold mitten friction, beginning with the face. A hot and cold shower can be taken instead of the mitten friction if the person is strong enough to take a shower. All right, so you're going to dry the skin. Make sure you dry the skin afterwards, after you have completed the the application. Okay, and this is for the sinuses. So this is to get rid of the sinus. So this is called a sinus pack. So this is what you're going to use if the person is suffering from sinus pain or a sinus attack. So you know the congestion is right up there. So you're going to use this method to get rid of the congestion. All right? And so the person can breathe. So that is called a sinus pack. Now we're going to be looking at the heat lamp. What is the heat lamp? Now this is an ordinary, the incandescent light or an infrared heat lamp, if you prefer to use that one. Now this is used as a local hot application. Either way, we will call it the heat lamp, irrespective of which one we are using, the incandescent light or the infrared heat lamp. We're just going to call this heat lamp, just for ease of reference. Now, we highly recommend that in most cases, persons use the incandescent and not an infrared lamp. All right, but please never use an ultraviolet lamp for this purpose. All right, and do not use a sun lamp for a heat lamp. Make sure there's a difference. Okay, all right. So some conditions are best cared for with a heat lamp. An outstanding example is its use in clearing out stuffy, swollen nasal passages. Another example would be ear aches as well. It can also be used for other local heating applications such as limbs, perineal, perineal care, etc. Now, the things that you're going to need are the simplest and least expensive is one of those lamps with a wire screen over it. You're going to this one is screwed into this regular incandescent light bulb. So that means you're going to use a regular lamp. Different size wattages may be used for different heating effects, but normally we use the 100-watt bulb. This will suffice in most cases. All right, so you are going to use that, and this one should have a clamp attached to it or should be attached to a clamp. Now this clamp can then be attached to the bed headboard. Yes, it's one of those lamps that has that way, something like a clothespin. When you press it and open it, that clamp, and you clamp it to the headboard of the bed. All right. So you can clamp it either to the headboard or to the chair or to something with other brackets that is close to the bed or above the bed. An infrared bulb can also be used, but this is more expensive and actually somewhat less useful over an extended period of time due to its intense heat. So be very careful that you follow these directions that are listed on the package that you get with the infrared. All right, with the the bulb that you purchase. Now, firmly set the incandescent heat lamp over the part to be treated. The lamp can be clamped either to the bedboard, as I said, or to a temporary arm or bracket. A folded wet facial tissue or thin cotton cloth should be laid over the part to be heated with the lamp. So if the person is lying down in bed, The rest of his body should be covered and kept warm as well. Okay, so the person is lying down and the person should be covered and kept warm. So remember, this is you are doing maybe up here where it's congested. So then you are going to put a folded wet facial tissue or cloth over the section. It's preferably a cotton cloth over the section that should be heated. Now the average timing is about 20 to 30 minutes, but in certain conditions such as an earache, it might be you might need to use it for several hours so that the person can obtain the desired rest. Now, the opening of the nasal passages. Now, what you're going to do for opening of the nasal passages, you're going to place the 100-watt incandescent lamp about 2 inches from the nose. 2 small squares of moistened tissue can be placed over the eyes to protect them. So you're going to close the eyes, put the moistened tissue or cloth over the eyes to protect them. The heat wonderfully drops or opens up the stuffed nose and lets it drain. So once the heat goes on that area, the nose will begin to drain. Your stuffiness will be, if you're going to feel the stuffiness going, because the heat will help the nose to drain, the congestion to go away. Now for the earache, you're going to use the same 100-watt regular light bulb. Even in for children and small babies, they can lie still. Well, they can quickly feel the relief from the pain. Um, for children and babies, it might be a little difficult, but as mothers, as parents, we know how to comfort and know how to get them to keep still. All right, so even if they are napping at the time, you can do this method. Okay, so they also, for postpartum perineal care, following a childbirth, pain from damaged tissue can be relieved during the healing process by occasional use of the lamp as well. No assistance is needed because it is simple to use in this area. So the lamp is also helpful in soothing, like after after a hot blitz bath. So this can be very soothing as well. Okay, so these are some of the local hot applications that we can use in this section of hydrotherapy, using the water for our doing our fermentations and for doing our hot compresses and for our paraffin bath and so on. Okay, and we can use the sinus pack, the kidney stone pack, and we can use the hot paraffin wrap. Now, irrespective of where on your, like for your extremities, your hands and your feet and so on, you can use these methods, the paraffin wrap and the paraffin the hot paraffin bath, the pack, the dressing, and the wrap. You can use them accordingly to ease yourself, to relieve the pains and the discomforts, joint pains, and so on that we often feel. Now, there are some other applications that we can use for with hot and cold, so local hot and cold. There are some alternate hot and cold that we can use to the head. All right, and it can help when we have um, This application causes fluxion or an increase of blood to the afflicted area. Thus, it can work to improve the circulation of blood within the head and relieve an anemic headache. So, this is a headache that is caused by a lack of blood in the brain, and it is also helpful in remitting passive congestion, and cold in the head. Now, there are two totally different hot and cold applications that we can use to the head. So we can use them here together. All right. So it is an alteration of hot and cold to the head. And it means that first you place hot to the head and then cold, and hot and then cold again. So you do it alternately, and you do a 3 cycle application. So you will do it a 3 full cycle application. All right, so you're going to need 2 pieces of Turkish toweling or thick hand towels, about 12 inches square, for the wet compresses. You're going to need 2 ice bags filled with finely chopped ice and then covered with a thin cotton cloth or a cheesecloth. A hot water bottle partly filled with hot water. Remember, as I said when I was doing the hot water bottle earlier, you don't full the water bottle. You make sure if it's half full or 3/4, and then what you're going to do is make sure that the air comes out so that the bottle can lie flat. It's easier to use, it won't be falling off the area, and it won't be bulky. All right, so it will be flat, and it also helps the heat to stay in the water a little longer. So that the hot water bottle partially filled with hot water and then covered either with a dry fermentation cloth or with a towel, or if you have a bag for the water bottle. A bowl of ice water and a pail of boiling water are also needed. Now, how do you apply this? Now, you're going to place the hot water bottle crosswise over the back of the neck, bringing it well up under the back of the head and over the neck. So, wring the toweling compress out lightly from the ice water and then apply it to the face. It should cover the face, top of the head, and the ears. Press down firmly over the forehead and the temporal arteries. Now, these are arteries that are just above and in front of the ears, right here. All right. So you're going to do that. So you can use a plastic sheet to protect the pillow because the person will be placed on the bed. You can place hot water bottle inside the fermentation cloth, and then you're going to place the fermentation cloth with the hot water bottle behind the neck. As I said, place face cloth into ice water, then wring the water from it, and then you're going to apply to the face, and you're going to change once every 60 seconds, 1 minute. Now you're going to renew this compress every minute. After 3 minutes, remove the hot water bottle and put 2 cloth covered ice bags where it had been. And also replace the cold compress over the face by wringing out another one. But this one is quite dry. Now follow you're going to make sure that you take the precautions because you don't want it to the hot water. Make sure you wring the one that you're putting over your face. Make sure you wring it out. Wring out the hot water. You don't want any dripping because you don't want any burn. And you're going to renew the hot compress every minute. So in another 3 minutes, begin the cycle over again. Replace with the first application of the hot water bottle to the back of the neck and the cold compress to the face. Continue these alternations for about 3 complete cycles, then cool all the parts by wiping off with a cold compress and dry thoroughly, right? And you make sure you dry the hair, especially because the hair might get a little damp. Okay? So the bed should be protected with plastic sheeting. The hot compress should not be pressed to the face. The eyes should be protected from the heat with a thick compress or with a towel. All right. And there is another application that I'll share with you quickly, and this is the simultaneous hot and cold to the head. Right. So hot and cold is placed to the head, but instead of alternating back and forth, like what I just said, shared with you, the hot is kept on certain areas and the cold is kept on another area. Now, a primary difference is that the cold application is placed over a reflex area of a deeper part or over a large artery supplying blood to it. Now, this produces depletion or a removal of blood from the head. Thus, the effect produced is the exact opposite of that which is produced by the alternate hot and cold to the head. Now, this treatment is very effective in reducing congestion in the head and relieving congestive headache that is caused by an excess of blood in the brain. Now, you are going to need essentially the same things that I mentioned before, but this simultaneous hot and cold, um, you are going to need the same things that I mentioned before in the alternate hot and cold. So you are going to place an ice bag to the base of the brain, which is the back of the neck, and a second ice bag um, and a second ice bag to the top of the head. So a cold, wet towel on the hair will intensify the cold application to the top of the head. Now, you're going to do that instead of wetting the hair. So you're going to apply the wet towel. Also, place ice bags or ice compresses over the, the carotids. The carotid arteries are on both sides of the neck and are the arteries that are near the surface that bring blood to the brain. Then apply a fomentation. Yes, or the jugular vein. Yes, thank you. So apply a fomentation to the face, covering the ears and forehead. Cotton sheeting material or gauze or cheesecloth should be used under the fomentation when it is applied to the face. The nose should not be covered by the fomentation, for it is better that the person is able to breathe in cooler air. Conclude the treatment by first pouring hot and then cold water onto the feet. Keep a cold neck and head compress. So cold, damp toweling, keep it on the person while pouring the water on the feet. All right, so you're doing this simultaneously. Okay, so you are going to, as I said, place an ice bag to the base of the neck and place ice bag to the top of the head. Place ice pack on either side of the neck and a cold, wet cloth over the hair instead of wetting the hair as in the first application. Apply a hot fomentation over the face while making sure the person can breathe through the nose. Okay? Pour hot water, then cold water over the feet. So use both hands, pour the hot water, pour the cold water simultaneously over the feet. All right, and this is for the simultaneous hot and cold head treatment, and these treatments are used um, when you want to improve the circulation of blood within the head and relieve an anemic headache. And this is a headache that is caused of lack of blood in the brain. Now, for the simultaneous hot and cold, is for the essentially the same thing, but this is reducing congestion in the head and relieving congestive headache. And this is a headache that is caused by an excess blood in the brain. So it is opposites. It is opposite. Now, as we have looked at the hot, the local hot and cold, and we have looked at the local hot applications, I hope that you have learned something. Something would have been said that that catches your attention. And I pray that as we go through and, see these things, listen to these things, that we will be able to apply them. Sometimes it's not for us, but it's for others. And sometimes there are persons who get sick and they don't know what to do, but we can help them in some way or another. All right. So the information that is shared here on this program, Nature's Way, is for us all to, to learn them and to share them with others, because sometimes persons get sick and don't know what to do, and we are here to help. And this message, this health message that God has given to us, God has given us the remedies that we can use to, to heal ourselves. And with His help, He wants to ensure that we are healed. And um, I just want to remind you of some of the symbols that water is used for. And I just want to remind you that water is one of the 8 laws of health that God has given to us. And this is one of the blueprints that we should follow. We should drink plenty of water. We don't use water only internally, we also use it externally. And as I have shared with you, with this method of hydrotherapy, it's one of the healing remedies that God has given to us to use when we have complications and sicknesses and so on. A lot of persons suffer from um, sinus problems, and sometimes it is difficult because you have this headache, this excruciating pain, and this congestion that sometimes will not go away. All right, but using hot and cold water can bring healing to our body, and this is a powerful method that God has given to us, and we can use it for our health. God has made the provision for us, and He has given us this information. I pray that we will use it and we will allow Him to do His work in our lives so that we can become healthy and stay healthy and share with others as well. All right? As the book of Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 17. as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, that the Lord says, "For I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, saith the Lord, because they called thee an outcast, saying, This is Zion, whom no man seeketh after." The Lord wants to heal us. He wants to heal us not just of our diseases and our sickness, but He wants to heal us of the disease and sickness of sin. And He is calling us back to Him. And He wants to be our Savior in this world from all the things that are happening in this world. My encouragement to you this evening is that you surrender your all to Him and allow Him to be first, best, and last in your lives. He has said in His words, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospereth." Our souls cannot prosper outside of God. We cannot have good health outside of God. We cannot live eternal life outside of God. Surrender your all to Him today and allow Him to do His work in us. I just want to say thanks to all those persons who joined this afternoon, who joined the program and stayed with us this afternoon. And I wish for you all, listeners on the radio and those on YouTube, a productive week, a restful night tonight. And I hope that you will allow God to lead continuously in your life. Let us pray. Our Father, which art in heaven, thank you for this information that you have given us this evening. Lord, a lot of times we go through some ailments and we don't know what to do. But here you have shown us that we can use water to heal us, to heal our bodies. You have said in your word that you want to heal us. You want to restore us, not just for good health, in good health, but also redeem us unto you. I pray, dear Lord, that you will help us to surrender our all to you and let your will become ours. Help us along this path because we are weak and you are strong. Bless us now, we pray, and be with the listeners and the viewers on this program. Continue to guard, guide, and protect us. In Jesus' name I pray and say thanks. Amen. It's goodbye from Nature's Way. Until next Sunday, do have a wonderful week. Mhm.